Hello again. Welcome back to another edition of Electric Avenue's YouTube updates. Thanks for joining me. We're doing new releases for, are we into August already? August 1st. August 1st, 2025. Um, what can I say? It's been a big week in some ways and not in others. So I'm going to get to the new releases. I have a recommend and I want to give a little bit of a shout out at the end. So thank you all and sit back, relax. This will probably be a shorter video. So okay. First thing up, I like to show box sets first every week that come into the shop. This is sort of a box set. I mean, it's really sort of a multiple record thing. I think there's 4 records in it. Snarky Puppy, we like it here. Snarky Puppy, sort of a jazz, acid jazz combo hybrid sort of thing, and sort of a nice set here. So anyway, remixed, remastered, and reimagined. So Snarky Puppy, not Skinny Puppy, Snarky Puppy. All right. And then as far as like sales wise, probably bigger releases, Roger Waters and his new Live in Prague record. This was recorded in 2022. Got nice dark side imagery back there. Powerful night, standing up for love, mourning injustice, and demanding human rights. Well, Roger's very, what's the word? Controversial, to say the least. But this is a lot of stuff from Pink Floyd, past Pink Floyd stuff. I see Eclipse, Brain Damage, Us and Them, Money. Yeah. Outside the Wall, Shine on You, Crazy Diamond, Wish You Were Here, Run Like Hell. You're gonna get a lot of Floyd live. So anyway, it's a 4 record set. And it runs about $80, but 4 records. So that's kind of a box set sort of thing. That's also available on CD, more economical double CD for around 20. The one thing I don't have to show today, surprisingly, ironically, is the new Buddy Guy. It hasn't shown up yet. I'm waiting for the vinyl and the CD, so apologies there. It will be here, I hope, by Friday. If not, it'll be sometime early next week, but it's on the way. Billy Strings and Brian Sutton. This is a live recording that they did last year, live at the Legion, American Legion, post 82. It's on limited edition red, white, and blue vinyl. They're sort of split into sort of groups here, almost like Neapolitan ice cream. And it's a double record. It also runs about $50, but some great acoustic live stuff from Billy and Brian. And there's no CD available for this. So the only way, at least for us, the only way to get it is vinyl. So anyway, starts with the Nashville Blues, Tom Dooley, Little Darling Pal of Mine, Walk On By, Texas Gales, ends with Gonna Lay Down My Old Guitar. So double record, new Billy Strings. Excited for this duo. They played a show around here last night. It had to be sweltering because it was an outdoor concert. Rachel and Villeray, west of Broadway, and Rachel from Lake Street Dive, and Villeray is a very talented guitarist, acoustic guitarist and singer, and they sound great together. He also does whistling. They sound really great when they're sort of doing this kind of street busking kind of sound, very retro, jazzy, romantic. I mean, she has an incredible voice, and they really do sound great together. And it features the song Off Broadway, featuring none other than Stephen Colbert. So, yeah, he's a friend of theirs. All right, not of mine. I mean, I don't have a problem with it, but Wood Brothers and new Wood Brothers record, Puff of Smoke. And this is on indie record store exclusive opaque dark purple vinyl. New Wood Brothers, so they're sort of folk rock. Chris Wood, bass, harmonica, and vocals. Oliver Wood, guitar and vocals. Anyway, looks like 11 songs. So, New Wood Brothers. And thankfully, they've kept their record like $28. You know, some of these artists that are now pushing like $40-$50 for a new record. Some people are just like, I like them, but not that much, you know. So, or it gets tricky, I think. Kurt Vile, this actually came out last week, and I don't know if it made the video, so I'm showing it here. Kurt Vile and Luke Roberts' Classic Love, a new EP from the two of them. So it's just a few songs, but sort of a stopgap between records for Kurt. Anyway, that's new. So I forgot to show that last week. I also, or it came late, and so did this Folk Bitch Trio. I may have showed the CD for this, but three women. I believe they're English, maybe. I don't know, actually. Gracie Sinclair, Heidi Peverell, and Jeannie Pilkington, sorry. Pilkington. Let's see. Their new record. If you're into sort of like Boy Genius and stuff like that, you might want to check them out. They're a little more intimate sounding than that because they are folk. While there is some folk music in Boy Genius, it's not quite to that level. A new Renee Rapp record called Bite Me. And Renee is sort of known for being in Mean Girls, I think on Broadway maybe. But she's kind of going like pop music type stuff. And she's got a great voice and seems to be kind of hitting her stride with young people too. So watch Renee Rapp. That might be sort of big eventually. I don't know if out of the gate. Also, another artist that I actually have heard albums from, yes, and my nephew's really into them, Suicide Boys, and this is their new record. It's called Thy Kingdom Come, and they're sort of a hip-hop duo. It's on opaque maroon vinyl, sort of a stark imagery there as Suicide Boys usually. Some story about they had a pact that if they didn't make it famous or popular that they would kill themselves. And well, that's kind of grim actually. So I'm glad that people actually listened to them and they didn't have to take such extreme measures. Because you know there's no coming back from that. So all right. A couple more things here. We've got some great reissues this week. Blue Note Tone Poet series, Horace Silver, and the Tokyo Blues. And this one is sort of a famous one. I think we've had like originals of this in the store once or twice. This was released in 1962. Features Blue Mitchell on trumpet, Junior Cook on tenor sax, Gene Taylor on bass, and John Harris Jr. on drums. So Horace Silver, the Tokyo Blues. And also, since we usually get Tone Poets in two, we get Jackknife by Jackie McLean. And this one I've seen much less than the other even. This was done originally 2002. I think it must have been... there was a point there where Blue Note were sort of clearing out the vaults and collecting things that either hadn't been released or were parts of albums that they put together to make into albums. But Jackknife, this features Lee Morgan, Charles Tolliver, Larry Willis, Larry Ridley, and Jack DeJohnette. So not a bad group of performers there. I mean, Lee Morgan, pretty much anything that guy on is great. So there you go, your two Tone Poets from Blue Note of the week. They usually do 2 of those a month. Another series that Acoustic Sounds, Kevin Gray does the mastering on this, is involved in now are the Bluesville series, and they were done through Craft Recordings. Now these were mastered by Matt Lutens, I don't know how to say that. This is Memphis Slim, the gate at the Gate of Horn, and Memphis Slim sitting at the piano there, sweating it out, which you would be doing around here right now because it has been pretty ungodly this last week. So there's that one, and the other one because I also do these in twos. Furry Lewis, and his album Back on My Feet Again. So those are your two Blue Note or Bluesville offerings of the week, and those look great. They've really been doing a great job with these Bluesville series. They just sound like they're in the room with you. This one was originally on VJ, so you know it added sound like crap because VJ vinyl sounded terrible, terrible. And this one was originally on Prestige, slightly better, but not that much. So, I mean, look, you can't go wrong with these things, people, because it is like night and day compared to what they used to sound like. And the performances were always there. The performances were great. It was the vinyl, the quality of the vinyl that they used. I mean, they were considered sort of like, secondary lower tier artists to the sort of business suits up in the office buildings of New York. So give them the cheapest quality vinyl. So, all right, this release very special to me. It came out maybe 2 or 3 years ago as a record store day only release in the UK, and it was not released anywhere else, and it already is selling for over $100 online just to get this. Now we get black vinyl versions. I don't think they're making a lot of these either, so I'm putting this on here now hoping that someone who really wants this is going to see this, because I think these might go fast and I don't know how long I'll be able to reorder them. So anyway, David Sylvian, people know me, know he's one of my favorite artists, and his album Secrets of the Beehive, probably my favorite album of all time, certainly up there. Gone to Earth, Brilliant Trees, Dead Bees on a Cake, all incredible records. This one I sort of add to that because it was originally released under the name Nine Horses, but it's really David Sylvian and his brother Steve Jansen and other side players. Stina Nordenstam does a guest vocal on this album. It's sort of a jazzy version of Sylvian, more conventional sounding. If you didn't like his post-2000 stuff like Blemish or Manafon, where they got really sort of out there sonically, this album was much more sort of in line with, that sort of prog jazz kind of stuff, but very ambient. A lot of beautiful kind of mixes and instrumentation. This is Snowborn Sorrow is the name of the album, and it's expanded for the LP. They actually added a couple of songs. First time on black vinyl, includes the non-album tracks Birds Sing for Their Lives and When Monday Comes Around, plus the previously unreleased remix of Atom and Cell. So they're not cheap. They're imports. They're about $60. So get them quick if you want them. So I'm hoping that they still have a few. So another artist that I think a lot of people kind of have forgotten a little bit, and it's interesting that this is out on vinyl, Mike Snow. Mike Snow is sort of a project of the artists Bloodshy and Avant. They're producers from Sweden. They got with a sort of American singer-songwriter. His name escapes me. And this was their debut record. It kind of was like sort of an indie underground kind of hit, like almost like Foster the People, with their, sort of when they had like one or two sort of big hits. Animal and what was the other one on here? I want to say there were two. Maybe it was Black and Blue. Anyway, this was sort of big around 2007 or 2009. So Mike Snow, they just chose the name because they liked the name. It was a person that they knew, and they added an I into it because they thought it looked cool. You would know Bloodshy and Avant most probably from their production work on many, many, many pop records. The biggest one probably being Britney Spears' Toxic. This sounds nothing like that. It is very much more sort of indie rock. I mean, it's still very produced sounding, but it's not sort of rough around the edges at all. And it's not super, super pop either. So it's kind of somewhere in the middle. Look up Bloodshy and Avant if you want to see the list of people they've produced. I mean, Kylie Minogue, there's a ton of pop people. Magdalena Bay, and a reissue of their album Mini Mix Volumes 1 through 3. And these are actually, it's not really an album, it's kind of a collection. But this is a 2-disc tridescent blue vinyl with etching on side D. And Magdalena Bay was one of the biggest sort of breakout stories of last year. They're sort of indie synth pop. And these are early tracks that they did that were kind of like, I suppose, more lighthearted and humorous. They have titles like Slug Song, Top Dog, Wow, Sky to Fall, El Dorado. I don't know, a little bit sort of like their charming early stuff. They were a little more probably poppy at the beginning, and now they've gone a little more almost proggy in a way, like synth prog, but still very girly vocals, and they're very talented. I think they're like a romantic couple too, like a boyfriend, girlfriend, or what. I don't know if they've gotten married yet or not, but Magdalena Bay. There's a Jack Johnson reissue of In Between Dreams. We already had this record as a regular reissue. This is just a yellow vinyl edition. So this will hopefully be around for a little while. I don't think they did anything extra to that. A couple of things that came out in the last couple weeks that I just wanted people to know that we got a couple copies of. There's 2 different versions of the new Clips album, and this one is pressed on clear vinyl for indie stores. I've mentioned this in videos. It's very popular right now, featuring Kendrick Lamar, Pharrell Williams quite a bit, Nas, John Legend. And it's hip hop. And check out their Tiny Desk concert, because that's truly pretty amazing stuff. They did a really great job of that. It's neat seeing hip hop brought into a very sort of indie kind of intimate sort of place. The other is the new album from Freddie Gibbs and the Alchemist, Alfredo 2. And I think I showed the other version last week, which is very, very limited, and I don't have many of these left. This is the sort of indie exclusive cover. But we'll have the regular version around for a while, hopefully. But I did see that they seem to be sold out at the warehouse of both of them right now. So anyway, Alfredo 1 was pretty big hit for Freddie Gibbs and the Alchemist maybe like 5 years ago or so. So now we get the follow-up. And it's flying off shelves. So both of those hip-hop releases. I have a couple more things here. Excuse me. Thomas Dolby, The Gate to the Mind's Eye, and this is a Music on Vinyl reissue. There was a Thomas Dolby that came out a couple weeks ago called Astronauts and Heretics, which was his album from the 90s. That was a Music on Vinyl record, and this one limited to 750 individually numbered copies on silver vinyl. If you've ever seen the Mind's Eye videos, you know the music from it. It's pretty techy and kind of like sort of a precursor to what like things like Minecraft are now. But Thomas, obviously most famous for his song "She Blinded Me with Science," but he also was credited with creating ringtone technology. So, and hosted many TED Talks. He's composed music for George Lucas. Granted, it was Howard the Duck. But anyway, Thomas definitely involved in the tech world. He's out there again, touring and writing songs, I guess. And He's sporting a new hairpiece that you hardly recognize him, but he sort of wanted to do that. And yeah, I mean, his music has always been pretty great. So, Gate to the Mind's Eye, that's on Music on Vinyl. And then the last thing I sort of wanted to recommend for the week, Music on Vinyl. Let's see. Well, I wanted to talk a little bit about 1985 when I sort of talk about this piece. So 1985, I feel, was a very kind of a pivotal year. It was sort of for music, it was sort of that kind of moment where if you've been watching any of the CNN documentaries for well, I think it was they brought it from the BBC, but they've been playing the Live Aid documentary. And 1985, that year when Live Aid happened, there was a lot going on in music. I feel like it was a very, not only was it a turning point for the decade of the 80s, but it was also a turning point for music. The music up until that point had been pretty like, at least the pop stuff, been pretty lighthearted, fun, new wave, kind of ramshackle. Things were sort of done like, just sort of like for fun a lot of the time. You had Girls Just Want to Have Fun from Cyndi Lauper, which was probably very calculated, honestly. But I mean, it's a great album. She's So Unusual, great album. Also, things like a lot of like the sort of offhanded kind of fun of like bands like Tom Tom Club, who were like offshoots of like Talking Heads, or you had things like Soft Cell being big in England, and then those kind of sounds coming over to the U.S. Tears for Fears, Duran Duran, a lot of British pop made its way over to the U.S., and it gave America sort of a jolt that it needed to get out of its sort of we were very heavy into balladry at the time, coming out of the disco era. People smashed all their disco records. I don't know anybody who did that, but apparently people did. And so music became less about partying for a minute and more about like just staying at home and listening to your, Diana Ross and Lionel Richie sort of ballads. Even Paul McCartney and Stevie Wonder had their own ballad, stuff like that. And so all of this kind of new wave energy coming from England in particular, after like punk sort of made some inroads, was really kind of changing things. And then by the mid 80s, it seems like what always happens, which is record companies found ways to take that music and make it sort of more homogenized and whatever, for better or for worse. But there were some things in the mid 80s that were kind of special, I suppose. And I would say, going along with Live Aid, like a case in point would be like someone like Tears for Fears, where their first album, The Hurting, was just really great. It was underground enough that it spoke to like a lot of youth, but it also had enough pop sensibility that the hits could kind of carry it on radio. And that sort of in 85 became much more sort of under a clinical sort of situation where production became really important. And it always had been important, but it really was like, I think Frankie Goes to Hollywood in particular, the singles Relax and Two Tribes, Power of Love, really brought all of that production thing up to a certain standard, because they were such over-the-top productions. Trevor Horn sort of helmed that stuff. He'd been working with Yes. They'd done Owner of a Lonely Heart. That was also a big move for Yes in their sort of way of making music. And other big releases that year would have been like ABC made sort of a comeback with their How to Be a Zillionaire album, which sort of poked sort of holes in the excess of that sort of lifestyles of the rich and famous thing, while also presenting it under a completely like Fairlight type synth microscope. Scritti Politti also had been working towards their album Cupid and Psyche 85, which is one of the best produced albums of the 80s. Very sort of synthy but soulful, and produced by Arif Mardan, who'd worked with a lot of Atlantic Records luminaries and eventually worked with Norah Jones. So he did a lot of different work over the course of his career. But those productions, Shaka Khan, I Feel For You, very sort of like glossy, but interesting. Lots of little production kind of like things thrown in there to keep things interesting, soulful, before it got sort of blander in the late 80s. And another sort of band I would probably, if you're looking at the charts of 1985, and look at the Billboard Hot 100 singles, the number one song of the year for sales and play in the US was Careless Whisper by Wham, featuring George Michael. The number 3 song of the year was Wake Me Up Before You Go Go by Wham. And they also had 2 more songs on that list for that year. They had Everything She Wants was number 25, and Freedom, the first Freedom, was 76. So 4 big singles in the course of a year for George Michael and Wham. They went huge that year, and I think that sort of also showed how glossy things kind of got, because while there was a lot of soul and heart in some of George's stuff, it was also pretty professional and pretty like produced, very well produced. And Madonna, Like a Virgin, was the number 2 song of the year. We saw artists like Hall & Oates, Dire Straits, Foreigner, established kind of 70s artists kind of really, I mean, Foreigner had sort of been popular all along, and Hall & Oates too, but they got to new levels of sort of like glossiness. Phil Collins, it was a sort of a big time for production. And that was sort of what I'm trying to get at here, is a sort of a double-edged sword, because what came after that in the late 80s was almost a little too produced and maybe not as much heart. And so the album that I'm focusing on today, that was a reissue, has been reissued this past week, and it was another Music on Vinyl title, is Dead or Alive's Youthquake. And this actually features the UK number 1 hit, and in America it hit number 11, which is You Spin Me Round Like a Record, the first song on this. I'd say much to the band's benefit, records sort of went away in the 90s and then came back. So in a way, the song has as much relevance now as it ever did, because people know what spinning around like a record is again. So there's that aspect of it. But yeah, so this was the second album, full length, from Dead or Alive, and it was produced by Stockcake and Waterman. This is a 40th anniversary edition, so it's been 40 years this May, I think, was the original date. 1,500 individually numbered copies on gold vinyl. So what can I say about this? Stockcake and Waterman was a production team that were approached to do this album, and they had not yet had Rick Astley and Kylie Minogue, so songs like Never Gonna Give You Up and The Locomotion had not happened yet, and they often get derided for being part of that hit factory of the late 80s. And while they were a part of this, this was not yet to that level of sort of sugary aspects of their production. They were a little bit more sort of underground still at this point. So the lead singer, Pete Burns, who passed away nearly 10 years ago now, was a very interesting character. I'm sure people who live in England could say much more about him than I possibly could. But he was from Liverpool. He worked at a record store called Probe Records for many years, 70s into 80s. He wore lots of outlandish things, dressed very unique and makeup, and spoke pretty brash. He would sort of like the scene from High Fidelity. He would tell customers, there's no way I'm letting you waste your money on this record. And he wouldn't let people buy certain things. I mean, he was very opinionated, had a very interesting sort of background in his sort of, well, his mother was sort of like, had a sort of single parent situation. And it sounds like it was very unique. Anyway, so Dead or Alive's first album came out the year before, and that had this cover, and it was the album Sophisticated Boom Boom. I remember buying this as a kid thinking, I have no idea what this is going to sound like, but the cover is just, what the heck, it's just so outlandish. And the music was fairly outlandish. I mean, it's sort of dance pop with kind of a rock edge. His voice was pretty rough. And it does feature the songs I Do Anything and their cover of Casey and the Sunshine Bands. That's the way I like it. It was kind of a minor hit in the UK. It did nothing in the US. Pete sort of was trying to establish himself he'd been in other bands before this. And in fact, one of them, I think he was with Wayne Hussey from The Mission. It was much more early versions of Dead or Alive. Actually, Wayne was in Dead or Alive. Early versions of it were more gothy. And they realized that with the explosion of this character, they needed to kind of, if Pete was going to do something, he needed to make more of an impression. And Boy George was living, I guess, in London at this period, and was kind of seen as like taking some of Pete's style. I mean, there's been that sort of claim that's been leveled at George. I have no idea if that's true or not. But George had a very sweet, beautiful soul voice. And this was Culture Club's debut album, Kissing to Be Clever. Features Do You Really Want to Hurt Me, which was a number one hit in the US, I think. Maybe number 2. Time Clock of the Heart, another number 2 hit, maybe number 1, I'm not sure. And I'll Tumble For You. There were 3 big hits from this album, and then they went absolutely mega after this on the next album in 83, Color by Numbers. That's the one with Karma Chameleon. So Pete was kind of feeling a little bit like, oh, I can do this too, and then Sophisticated Boom Boom, produced by a German named Zeus Beheld, didn't quite do it. So they went on to Youthquake and decided to work with this other production team that ended up being the biggest production team of the 80s as far as like a group of people churning out hits, especially in the UK. Very huge. So anyway, Pete had unique style. Unfortunately, he passed away from many things, probably mostly the addiction to plastic surgery that sort of did him in. He is quite a character, and at the end it was very tragic. But I want to focus on Youthquake a little bit for just a few more minutes, because this was really an album that kind of like made my ears go, oh my gosh, they've really upped the ante. And this is a very professional sounding record. I mean, it still has elements of the previous one, but it's much more glossy and much more kind of that exemplifies not only 80s sort of production excess, but also is still danceable and fun. And it didn't get too bogged down in like concept, but the first song, You Spin Me Around, I mean, it just jumps out of the speakers immediately. You know it right when you hear it, like what it is. That's followed by the song I Want to Be a Toy, which is very kind of a throwback, I think, to the previous album. Now, there were 4 singles from this. Lover Come Back to Me, My Heart Goes Bang, and In Too Deep were the others. And they were all either pretty super synth glossy, dancey. In Too Deep is kind of dancey, but it's also a little slower and sweeter. It has like a certain charm. Pete did not have much charm in his voice at all. The guy would probably have been some kind of either an opera singer at one time or a carnival barker. I'm not sure which. And they say, well, Boy George had so much more soul in his voice. And I think he probably did, but he certainly didn't have the power in his voice and the aggression that Pete did. And Pete could sing sweetly when he wanted to. The closing track on the previous album, Far Too Hard, is pretty sweet. But this one, In Too Deep, is great. The last track, It's Been a Long Time, is kind of more of an extended, darker sort of track. Cake and Eat It, which starts side two, is just hilarious. It's like kind of a campy throwaway type song. But songs like DJ Hit That Button and Big Daddy of the Rhythm, I think in particular the DJ Hit That Button, I don't know why that song wasn't released as a single, because it could have been another You Spin Me Round. There were several options for hit singles from this. And reading a Pete Waterman interview recently, he said Pete was the kind of guy that just could come in and just throw out a bunch of lyrics on a page and make the tunes catchy and make it work. It just happened. But he was also really irascible. He had like many arguments. There were things, if he didn't like it, if someone compared his music to the Beatles, he apparently just took the tape and stormed out. Like, he did not want to be compared to the establishment at all, or things that had come prior. He liked things at times like productions of Michael Jackson, and would want some of that kind of put in their records too. So really an interesting guy. This album is sort of like become a sort of gothic disco classic, really electronic, and things, but things like Cake and Eat It are like almost too humorous to call it gothy, really. I mean, there's a definite campy side to it also, but a very entertaining album from the mid 80s on a really high level of production. So Dead or Alive's Youthquake is my recommend for the week. It's not going to be to everybody's taste, I know that, but it's one that when I play it, it just sounds massive. Like, and DJ Hit That Button has these synthetic horns throughout it that just are like, just so over the top. So Stockache and Waterman really knew what they were doing as producers to make that work on radio in the 80s. And there were, like, the other hits, Lover Come Back to Me, My Heart Goes Bang, those songs, and In Too Deep, they all made the top 20 in England. They just weren't quite as popular in America. More club songs than that. The last thing I wanted to do today is just kind of give a little personal shout out. With all the passings recently, I just wanted to shout out my piano teacher, who was 95 and passed away last week. I studied with him for 15 years. His name was Richard Valletta. He was a incredible musician and mentor, and worked at Westchester University in Pennsylvania for many years. So he will be missed. And thank you all for listening to me. My voice is cracking, obviously, from talking too much and being upset about that. So have a great week. And summer's almost over. It'll be back to school here. And make the most of it. Let's make the next year much better than this past school year was. So as far as many things going on in the world. All right. Peace, love. Thank you. See you next time. Many more releases on the way.